Join me for a conversation with a frequent guest of the show, David Morgan, the Silver Guru, an expert on money, metals, and mining, also a lecturer and an author. Mr. Morgan has written Get the Skinny on Silver Investing, available on Amazon.com. His website is themorganreport.com. David, welcome back to the program.
Oh, it's great to be back with you.
Having bought physical silver this year over the $30 price point, I'm now waiting, I suppose, for it to hit $26 or $25 before I jump back in and accumulate more. We spoke during the last year, and you said anytime it's under 30, it's a good time to buy. Where are you at today?
Well, I'm being consistent. Basically, I've been buying both the equities and the metal itself about the last 4 or 5 months on a pretty consistent basis, meaning, dollar cost averaging. I bought some probably as high as 33 a few months back. I've definitely bought greater amounts under 30 because we've been under 30 for a while now. And, of course, the question continues, and everyone wants to answer, me too, because I'm not certain, where is the bottom and how far will it fall and all of that. Really, it appears that we may be at the bottom now. The lowest low we've had on this intermediate term correction, which started from the high of $48 back in April last year, till now, so we've been well over a year, has been 26.10 on the spot market, and of course we're well over 27 today. That could be it. I think that's it, but again, we don't know. That is a key area, though. For anyone that's listening that wants to have an edge or really think about this, if you're really convinced it's going lower, that's the key resistance level, the low 26s. If it gets below there and stays there for like 3 days in a row, you're pretty well assured we're going to seek a new bottom. And where that is, that really couldn't be determined now. Chart-wise, it's actually around the $20 level.
Would it be safe to say that anywhere under $30, it wouldn't be a bad idea to accumulate then?
Yeah, I want to be consistent here. I think strongly that we're at the bottom. I also think that we got a floor built in. Sprott just bought probably for $200 million to buy more silver at around this level, around the $27 level. And I don't have any inside track, although I do speak with them about every other week. And I think that they view silver as I do, that anything under 30 physically is a buy, and they think that, 26, 27 is low enough to go ahead, pull out a great amount of physical silver out of the market. So this is more or less creating a floor. I mean, Sprott can't do it alone, but almost, because $200 million in the physical market is a rather significant amount. So last time he made a purchase of that size, it actually moved the market up about $2.50. Jury's out on this because although the entities that want to participate in this offering are doing so, the actual silver has not yet been delivered. So I'm, watching it carefully. Again, I'm not worried about it getting into the low 20s. I really doubt that's going to happen, but I want to be consistent. There's anyone out there in the world that knows for certain.
Sprott's not alone in securing large amounts of silver at this time. China is also involved.
Absolutely. Something that I forecast and others as well about the China situation. If you go back about 20 years, China was using about 1/70th the amount of silver on a per capita or per person basis that North America's were. Because we had such more technology, anything that's electrical, electronic uses silver. And, of course, a richer country, so you have, more mirrors and more other jewelry and everything else that goes along with it. But if you go back about 2 decades, China accounted for 3% of global silver demand. Today, that's 16%. So that's over a 500% increase over the last 2 decades. If you go again back that same amount 20 years ago, China produced about 5% of the global supply, and today they produce 14% of the global supply. On top of that, if you go back only 10 years, China was exporting about 100 million ounces of silver on an annual basis. Today they import about 100 million ounces on an annual basis. So this huge shift has taken place in the silver market in China. And unless you study the market carefully, and I don't expect everyone to do that, that's my job and what I get paid for, there's this huge underlying sleeping giant, if you will. And these aren't necessarily silver investors. These are just the Chinese people that now can buy an iPhone or have an iPad or a laptop computer or getting electricity or buying their first washing machine or putting electricity in their home or moving from the country into the city and getting an apartment using electricity. Any of these things. In other words, the more industrialized a society is, the more dependent they are on the silver market. And it holds for China as well as anywhere else in the world. So it's really an interesting aspect. And one thing else I'd like to add on to that is what's happening on the paper side of the markets as well in China. Silver's futures trading just opened in China. The Shanghai Futures Exchange began trading silver futures in early May of this year. And the trading was more than about 21 billion in silver contracts that took place in that first month, which is 15 times the amount traded 2 years ago. So I think I'm making my point very clear that the trend in China is very, very strong and continues even with this quote-unquote global recession, which I think we're in. Silver, a lot of people think, well, the industrial side is waning because of, the slowdown in the global economy. And to some extent that's true. That is true in the solar part of the equation. But the overall, if you take it on balance, on everything that's dependent on silver in the industry, I make a case that, it's neutral and maybe even still increasing. It's really hard to get a handle on all the numbers because the data really isn't there for anyone to really get all of the numbers and really know for a fact. But the trend is certainly strong, and I think will continue.
Do you think in some way that China, in addition to offloading their currency, and by currency I mean their holdings in American dollars, our currency, and turning it into silver, do you think they're wanting to defeat the rise of the dollar and make sure that defeat in fact happens?
Hard to know, but let me state this. I just got back from the Hong Kong conference sponsored by Standard Chartered Bank, which is the largest bank in Asia. And this is a bank that sponsored this conference. And the overall theme, although they might not say it in these words, were that get out of dollars and get into resources. Now, those are my words, again, not theirs. But the whole conference revolved around every kind of resource you can think of and why you should be buying it even now. And that, I think, is the Chinese attitude. If you look at what the trends are there, you'll find that they're buying less and less U.S. debt, and they're buying more and more real assets either above ground or underground. In other words, buying mining projects, mining properties, outright taking positions in large and mid-size concerns that are resource-based, and they're also stockpiling some metals above ground and other things like energy, very important, of course. So they get it. They're turning that, paper money into real assets, which is what my business is about and several others. They get it. So that is a trend. Again, I don't think it's going to stop. In fact, I think it probably will either level out here for a while and then accelerate in the future.
Are the Chinese going to lead the way to where banks become what they were in this country, especially back in the Old West? Banks were full of gold and silver, and that was the currency.
It's hard to say, but what I will state is what was interesting after I did the keynote speech on the first day, we opened up for question and answers for about 15 minutes, and a gentleman asked me if I thought it would be a good idea to have the Hong Kong dollar backed by silver or not. Of course, obviously, I said yes. And I also quickly added on, I don't think you'd ever be able to do that. I think the banking authorities in Hong Kong would frown upon such a plan. But people are thinking that way. And I'll also additionally say that there was a meeting in Southeast Asia a very long time ago about a gold-backed yuan, also known as renminbi, the Chinese currency. And I do think that whatever country backs their currency by either gold, silver, commodities, something tangible, something real, will probably be the next currency. In fact, that's what was part of my speech at this Hong Kong conference, was that it's the same old story, it's the same old crime. Every time that we've gone on a fiat monetary system on a global basis, whatever century we've chosen to do so, the disruptions to the populace have been extreme, and then there's always a way back onto the gold standard, more or less, and then you get some much more stability. And that this is, I think, what will take place in the future. Now, this time around, it's really hard to say. I don't really see a pure gold standard. I see some pseudo-gold standard, or, again, some basket of commodities, maybe a basket of currencies. The bankers don't want to give up control. So it's going to be a very, very interesting, next few years, 3 to 5, I think, going forward.
What about gold and silver stocks, David? Is the move coming, or are they still irrelevant?
I can't believe I said that.
Well, that's one that hits me in the solar plexus because, although I follow the markets carefully and do speak about them in the morning report, and so basically if you just traded, the physical or through a derivative, my work would be very helpful to you. But we really spend a lot of time on the mining equities, and they are just dirt cheap, very undervalued. I think it's the place to be. I really, really know I've been saying that now for several months, and I've been correct for several months, unless the bottom falls out one way or another, which I just don't see happening. I mean, these stocks, for the most part, are so undervalued that I think if you're patient, you're willing to wait, 2 to 3 years out, you're going to be extremely happy. Most people in the sector are already in. They don't want to buy more. They're discouraged, but really it's a good time to buy.
Well, who can wait?
Well, I suppose a lot of people that are on the fence that haven't invested in the sector yet, that are waiting for that, it's going lower, or, I'm wrong, and silver's going to 20 or 18, or some of these numbers you see on the internet. And again, who knows? I doubt it. And they're waiting for some certain price or whatever. And if you're technically oriented and you're risk adverse, really, if you're smart, you actually wait for the bottom to take place, and as that bottom is absolute, you're almost guaranteed, and the prices start coming up, you're paying a higher price, but you're also entering in a much safer way. So that's another way a professional will actually get in the market is, okay, I don't want the bottom. I want to know the bottom is in, and as the prices start coming up and they start getting, more momentum and a lot higher, better pricing and better volume, then you get in the market. So that's a technique as well. So there's a lot of ways to trade these markets. It's just you got to find a way that, resonates with you and you can make money with it. There's many, many ways to make money in the market.
How do we know when the bottom is in? Does David Morgan tell us?
Well, certainly I won't take that responsibility, Ellis. Sentiment is one. Another one is, of course, the technical work, seasonality. I mean, there's a lot of things that play into it, but as far as I'm concerned, you got to kind of factor in everything. And I'm doing it based on sentiment, my subscription rates, what I've done technically for, 4 decades, and I believe that we're probably here or close to it.
Tell us now about the Morgan Report. You offer a great deal of free information, but there is a multi-tiered subscription service.
Actually, there's 3 levels of service. There's a basic, an intermediate, and an advanced. The basic is just for buy and hold investors. The intermediate, I show you the trading that I'm doing, which isn't daily, weekly even. I position trades, so sometimes these trades take several weeks to months. But I also update it, usually a couple times a month. And then there is an advanced service that's mostly for very high net worth investors or fund managers. All of that information is on the right-hand side of the website. I put videos together, so you kind of get a sneak preview of what you're going to get on the different levels of service.
You have a large amount of followers as well on your YouTube channel.
Well, the YouTube channel is Silver Guru on YouTube, obviously. Decided about 2 years ago, starting in 2011, I really didn't want to write in the public domain very much. I mean, I make my living basically writing and speaking. And I thought the best thing to do would be to use the time more wisely, which would be to put together audios and videos. And it finally occurred to me, I guess about 7-8 months ago or so, that all these audios that I do with people like you, Ellis, I should put on the YouTube channel as well. Because a lot of people will be working on their computer and they'll listen to an audio while they're doing something else, multitasking as we call it. And so I started to just say, anything that I do I should put on the YouTube channel. So I started doing that again several months ago, and it really seems to have kind of taken hold, and a lot of people now are discovering the channel and subscribing to it. And certainly, unless you're really have to learn that, everything I say, certainly you don't have to listen to everything that I put out there in the public domain. Nonetheless, I do a great deal of work, as anyone that's close to me knows. And secondly, there's a lot of information, and titles are usually pretty accurate as far as what we're talking about or discussing on any given program. So it's a quick way for someone that's new to get a pretty good education for free about the metals markets and the overall global economy and why this sector is so important. And on top of that, you get more specific as far as, my short-term calls and my long or intermediate-term calls.
Well, I'm feeling optimistic and somewhat excited right now. In the middle of the summer doldrums, maybe things are beginning to look up for many of us in the sector.
I hope it is. I think it is. I'm really going to be surprised. The seasonality is usually at gold bottoms in August. I think June was the bottom. Again, time will tell.
David, thank you very much for joining us today on the program.
Ellis, my pleasure.
I've been speaking with the Silver Guru, David Morgan, of themorganreport.com. Listen to the segment again on the podcast page of our website, ellismartinreport.com.